Would you mind if I ask you something? Stand up and I'll cross your arms. You just did a hand jam. But what is a hand jam? I thought you'd have guessed by now, but it's a form of crack climbing. Right, we're going away for a weekend crack climbing trip. We're going to one of the biggest crack climbing crags in Europe, Cadarese in Italy. It will be fun, hopefully. We're currently on a train headed towards Domodossola, and we're gonna sleep there. And tomorrow morning we're catching a bus to Cadarese, and we're gonna climb for 2 days. What interesting thing might happen? Nobody knows. Yeah. That's it. Oh yeah. Pete Whittaker also posted a story from there a couple of days ago, so. We haven't taken any toilet paper with us, so as the guy with the camera, the duty falls on my shoulders to yeah. As you can see, I already have this here, which is pretty, useful. So I will just, this is peak videography that you're currently watching right now. I don't think I can show you this for legal reasons.
Where are you?
Pete!
Are you Pete Whittaker?
Excuse me, have you seen Pete Whittaker?
Hey boy!
Hey boy, hey lad.
Hey boy! Have you seen a chap enjoying a cup of tea? The Carabinieri.
The Carabinieri, oh!
I just really like this tree for some reason. There's also a birthday party, so I hope I'm not a bad example for the kids. Hopefully they don't see me. Just having arrived at the quaint but, as we were to later learn, littered with Swiss tourists Italian town, we made our way to the place we had picked to spend the night. Though we had quickly got out of the lit-up shopping streets and into the dark depths of suburban Italy, we still got accompanied by a seemingly endless car stream. We're gonna die. Tonight we're gonna die. Oh yeah.
Okay, Martin.
You see,
That's a chicken wing roof off with a century crack.
Yeah,
Century crack.
yeah.
we're starting off strong. The journey goes on. After walking for about 15 minutes, we finally reached our desired sleeping destination, the previously scouted out, abandoned backyard of the local cemetery, only to find the unexpected and unpleasant presence of a lock and an accompanying fence. Funnily enough, the door was left unchained and thus unlocked, so we invited ourselves in the green godly grounds, greeting us with their gaping fields. It was actually a bit of grass, tall enough so that we could avoid being seen while lying down, but short and sparse enough so that we could avoid unwanted encounters with a wide spectrum of native fauna present. Snakes and shit. Yeah, so there's not an awful lot to tell. We're gonna sleep here.
Eat so much.
Yeah, we're just gonna brush our teeth and go to sleep then. So, see you tomorrow. Good night. Holy shit. So, I barely slept so far, and I just got sort of woken up by, you know, rain. It's 2:30. Yeah, see you tomorrow at 8. Good morning. You have absolutely no idea how happy I am that I didn't die. Oh, life is so beautiful. Now, this might have been a bit of an overreaction, but to be honest, it was my first, and thus far only, time sleeping in the backyard of a cemetery in the uncut grass next to a pile of unused bricks. The issue of getting my throat cut in my sleep by an Italian serial murderer was out of my mind, however, and the task at hand was getting out of the somewhat excessive warmth of my sleeping bag. Look at it. Look at the mountains. Then, after packing my bags and brushing my teeth, I met up with my mate, eager to find a slice of pizza to quieten down the rumblings of my hungry stomach. So this is where we slept last night. La Cemetery was the cemetery, right next to the cemetery. And now our bus is in an hour, right? A bit less than an hour. Yeah, we'll find breakfast. Oh, grazie. After getting a quick espresso at a coffee stand next to the train and bus station, we got on the bus, which would take us up to the camping spot under the crag, if our Italian vocabulary was to be trusted. Ciao, Cadarese?
Sì.
Due, per favore.
Non c'è più piccolo.
This was going to be our last encounter with the luxury of public transport until we boarded the train back the next day, because, sadly enough, this bus didn't operate past 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had hoped to make use of every climbable hour during our stay there. In the end, we could have got on the last bus, but we'll get there. After 40 or so minutes driving up the seemingly endless street following the mountainside, we were finally in walking distance of the camp where we would spend our second night out, this time with a roof over our heads and with no forecast of rain. We quickly got our sleeping gear out so it could distinctify and dry, thus getting fresh and welcoming once again. Then all that was left was for us to get our climbing gear and get on with climbing. My mate and I took a different approach to that, however, with him making use of his climbing backpack, whilst I opted for the more volume-effective and obviously superior method of using the bag of my sleeping bag. This place is absolutely amazing. It's so freaking beautiful. I've never been in like a valley in the Alps during summer. It's so green. Absolutely bonkers. We're currently going towards the crag, where we might incidentally meet Pete Whittaker. Just to be clear, we're not stalking. This climbing trip was planned as is for about a month now. It will be really cool if we get to meet him. See you on the wall. We began our first day of climbing by warming up both physically and mentally, or at least I did, because this was the first time I would be climbing on my own protection. This means that instead of clipping the rope in a quick draw, as one typically does when climbing with a rope, one brings the so-called cams, metal umbrellas as I like to call them, and puts them in appropriate places on the wall and then clips the rope in them. At first I seemed a bit skeptic about the whole stick a metal thing in the wall and trust it to carry your weight if you fell thing, but I got on the trad train pretty quickly after having a couple of goes myself. And it wasn't the first time for me to place trad protection in the wall, it was only the first time it was done exclusively so during a climb. Don't go trad climbing with no experience of placing gear. So we've just warmed up. I did my first trad only stuff, even though I didn't place all of the cams, and I did my first like official finger route thingy, whatever. It was fun, and now we're moving in the direction, the more interesting stuff. We might do some bolted stuff, but yeah, it's a really cool track. And that's trad. You see, there are no bolts. You place those motherfuckers in there. It's cool and it's safe, mum. We then progressed onto more interesting climbs, and this time I placed all of the gear on my own, apart from this first nut. This second climb, following the 6A-ish semi-chimney we did first, was another short and chill 5C to 6A crack, this time, however, using mainly finger jams and paddle hands, instead of the chimney back action. In the meantime, between my climbing mate and I switching, there came this really friendly couple to climb next to us, and this was the beginning of a reoccurring theme during this trip, namely really friendly climbing couples wearing Patagonia and Birkenstock.
Ja, mag ich.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. I will have you know, climbing with a GoPro on your head is one of the most uncomfortable experiences I've had. It completely destabilizes your head, and it's like 10 centimeters of something to push onto stuff. It's really annoying and really uncomfortable, and it weighs a ton. After having this productive and elevating morning, it was finally time for lunch. But first we had to replenish our water stocks, because the good 3 hours or so of climbing had seen our combined liter and 600 milliliters of water dwindle down to 0. Then, after enjoying a couple of good tuna cans, and Cliff Bars, sponsor us please, we allowed ourselves a bit of rest, during which my mate's water bottle decided to make a run for it and drop down the shaft below the boulder we were sunbathing on. And down this shaft we found interesting stuff indeed,
Yo,
apart from water bottles of course.
geil.
After successfully recovering the highly valued water vessel, we had a second hike to the water fountain to once more ensure our good hydration. And then we were ready for round 2. Okay, water got. It's time for round 2. After trying this 6B plus finger crack and realizing we don't have big enough cams, we don't have this sort of equipment on us, somebody feel free to sponsor us, but like 4 4s and 1 5? What? We finally got to try one of the most popular mainstream Cadarese climbs, this diagonal 6A plus non parlo inglese, but I don't speak any Italian so I couldn't tell you what that means. And we both flashed it, and it was pretty fun, even though my form was pretty shit and I was relying on my upper body strength to semi-campus a big chunk. I love the climbing dialect my mate and I have developed, combining German and basically all Slavic languages we know words in. The climb starts off with this diagonal and horizontal paddles and ring lock section, followed by chill vertical fists and paddles, after which the climber goes out on the big boulder on the right. There my climbing mate realized he could recycle one of the cams he had already used, so after he was safe on the block, okay, he was safe on there, I went and got one of the cams out, and this really friendly Austrian guy, who had just climbed the same route himself, suggested to go and throw it to him on the other side of the block. Meanwhile, the first thing I did when I got to that block was to lie down for a couple of minutes, just because. The climb then follows up with some sketchy slab. I hate alliterations. The climb then follows up with some sketchy slab climbing, slippery because a lot of people just stop on the block and don't climb up. But instead of listening to my mate, I decided to try it because I had got that far and I wanted to do the full official route, which was dumb on hindsight, but the more you climb, right? And just like that, day 1 was done, and we were on our way down the beautiful and majestic slopes of the Italian mountains and into the quaint camp next to the river, into which we went for a dip to wash off our tired body after the eventful day. That was fresh. The last item on our to-do list was enjoying some well-deserved dinner, pasta bolognese, and desserts of different dimensions, after which we brushed our teeth and entered our sleeping bags. Yes, I am exquisitely classy. That was day 1. See you tomorrow. Day 2, we started off with this wall the first thing in the morning because it was one of the most popular ones due to its abundance of good cracks, and we were in our right doing so because by the time we'd left there were people queuing in, even though there were 4 or 5 anchors. We started with this middle one, a 5C-ish pleasant crack with this funky overhanging bit in the middle, ending in what was almost an off-width section. Off-width being a crack wider than 2 fists stacked on top of each other, which makes it more tasking on the body. Then we moved left to this tighter and thus a bit more tricky but still enjoyable crag, which was around 6A, which began with a precarious slabby / finger jamming bit and ended once more in a wider crack. After those two, we did one 6B / 6B plus to the right, which I couldn't film because the GoPro's batteries died, and then we moved on, leaving many cracks waiting for our next visit. Write down in the comments if you'd like a part 2. Our next and sadly last stop for the trip was this 6C route, which... how do I put this? It was definitely us biting off more than we could chew. It begins with an interesting section, getting over the boulder in the beginning, followed by another slabby finger jams with little to no footholds that ended up digging a hole in my mate's shoes. Now, if you're good with finger locks and finger jams and stuff, this is the route for you. But as it was the second day ever for me climbing finger cracks, the crack got the better of me.
Alles gut. Nicht zu viel Blut anyways. Jetzt wiegst du weniger. Eine. Drž. Pojď. Halt. Okay. Woo!
Oh, and I did not get hurt. Don't worry about me. Somehow I was really lucky and my climbing mate gave me just enough slack so that my encounter with the rock was so brief that it could be cushioned by my chalk back. Now, back to climbing. And it's safe, Mom. The thing with outdoors climbing is, it's really humbling, especially if you're an indoors climber such as me. In a climbing gym, you might be a god, having climbed every red and purple 6C and 6C plus, maybe even a couple of 7s that are green with yellow dots. But outdoors, the holds don't stand out with vibrant colors. This leaves a lot more to planning, thinking, and having somewhat of a good technique, all of which are weaknesses of mine. And then there's also the factor of how many people climb it, which determines how slippery the rock will be, as frequent climbing wears down the surface, whilst the occasional climber once in a while isn't enough to keep the rock from getting really dirty, which is also slippery. This didn't stop us from trying though, and both of us spent 30 to 40 minutes on the wall, taking breaks and using the bolts in the upper half to aid our way up, especially as the upper half was more or less normal climbing with crimps instead of cracks, so we didn't bother doing it, especially as we had already fallen in the beginning. After this route, we were both so tired that we decided to call it a day and go home. As it was already getting close to 4 o'clock when the last bus to the train station would be leaving, we jokingly decided to ask around on our way down the crag if anybody could give us a ride. And within 5 minutes we had found this amazing Spanish couple that could drop us off. When we got down to the camping site, we packed our bags so quickly that we could have hopped on the last bus, but we decided to wait for the friendly climbers, and boy oh boy was that the right decision. After the couple was done for the day, which was around 5 o'clock, we all hopped in their adventure van, accompanied of course by their cute little doggy. The half-an-hour drive felt like 5 minutes with these cheerful people, and before long the train station in Domodossola was in sight, and we were on the Italian cobblestone, waving the adventure van and its owners goodbye.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. Help us a lot. Ciao.
Huh?
30 Minuten, das bringt wie 30 Pizza.
We then decided to get some pizza, as it was going to be the last bit of good pizza both of us were going to have for a while, and then got on the train. To be continued. Hopefully. Alright, thank you all very much for watching and for sticking to the end. This was quite the long video, but there was a shit ton that happened. Let me know in the comments below if you like this longer format of videos, or if you'd preferred I split it into shorter ones, and if you prefer to see one of the climbs uncut as a separate video on its own. Maybe I do that once we start climbing interesting stuff, not just like 5s or 6s. But yeah, I think I've exhausted both the topic and yourselves more than enough, so thank you very much. Have an absolute banger of a day and see you. Ta-da! And if my marketing strategy worked, thank you to everybody who came here from the White Boys, Adam Ondra, Philip Davies. Who is Philip Davies?